Welcome back. One of the most common questions about out-of-body experiences is, can you see things in other rooms? The answer, according to these witnesses, is a resounding yes. Today, we explore 7 new first-person accounts. These stories involve people who traveled through walls or across distances while their bodies were incapacitated, bringing back information that they could not have known through any physical means. Let's look at the evidence. Our first account comes from a man who left the operating theatre entirely to find his family. I was flatlining on the operating table, but I wasn't in the room. I felt myself drift through the ceiling and into the waiting room 2 floors down. I saw my brother sitting in the corner. He was wearing a navy blue tie with small white anchors on it, a tie I had never seen before. He was frantically pacing and accidentally knocked over a metal trash can, then looked embarrassed as he picked up a discarded soda can. When I woke up in recovery, the first thing I asked him was why he bought an anchor tie. He turned white. He had bought it that morning specifically for my surgery and hadn't told a soul. He also confirmed he knocked the trash can over at the exact time I was dead on the table. Moving from the waiting room to the very top of the building, this next witness saw something no patient should ever see. During a severe asthma attack, I felt myself float out of the hospital window. I rose up past the roof of the wing I was in. I saw that on the very top of the building, there were 3 abandoned plastic lawn chairs, 1 yellow, 2 white and a pile of old wooden pallets. I described this to my nurse the next day. She laughed and said there was no way I could know that because there is no public access to that roof. 2 days later, a maintenance worker confirmed that those chairs and pallets were exactly where I said they were. They had been left there by a construction crew months ago and forgotten. Next, we have a chilling account of a woman who overheard a conversation that was meant to be private. I was in a coma after a car wreck. I felt like I was standing in the hallway outside my ICU room. I saw 2 doctors, one I knew, one I didn't, whispering near the elevators. The stranger was wearing a very distinctive Mickey Mouse tie. I heard them talking about a mistake made with my medication dosage. When I finally woke up weeks later, I identified the doctor by his tie and repeated the conversation to the hospital board. They were horrified. There was no way I could have heard them from inside a soundproofed ICU room while in a deep coma. Not all experiences happen in hospitals. Our 4th story involves a mundane object found in a physically impossible way. I was undergoing a deep tissue massage when I suddenly popped out of my body. I found myself in my own kitchen, looking at the top of the tall cabinets. I saw my spare car key, which had been missing for over a year, tucked inside a dusty ceramic bowl I never used. I returned to my body and immediately drove home. I grabbed a step stool, reached for that bowl on the high shelf, and there was the key, covered in a year's worth of dust. I hadn't touched that bowl since I moved in 3 years prior. This next account is unique because it provided actual evidence for a police investigation. I was knocked out cold in a hit. As I lay on the pavement, I felt myself hovering over the car that hit me. I followed it for 3 blocks. I saw the driver pull over, get out, and open his trunk to check for damage. Inside the trunk, I saw a bright orange yoga mat and a set of jumper cables with blue handles. I memorized his license plate, but it was the orange mat that convinced the police. When they found the car, the mat was right there. From the ground where I was hit, I couldn't have seen into that man's trunk blocks away. Our 6th story takes us into the maternity ward where a mother saw a detail in a completely different wing. I had a complication during my C-section and lost consciousness. I felt myself float down the hall to the hospital nursery. I saw them bringing in a baby that was unminute, had a distinctive birthmark on its left thigh shaped like a crescent moon. I also saw that the clock on the nursery wall was stopped at 4:12 when I woke up. I told the nurse the clock was broken and asked about the moon baby. She checked the clock was indeed dead at 4:12, and a baby with that exact birthmark had been admitted at that time. I never left the operating room. We conclude this set with a story of a lost treasure found through a midnight flight. I was in a deep sleep when I felt myself lift and fly out into my backyard. I saw my wedding ring, which I had lost 2 days earlier, glinting under a specific leaf of a hosta plant near the fence. I had searched that garden for hours on my hands and knees. The next morning, I walked straight to that specific leaf, lifted it, and there was the ring. It was buried slightly in the dirt. There is no way I could have seen it while walking around normally, let alone while asleep inside the house. From anchors on a tie to a birthmark in a different room. These stories suggest that our awareness isn't limited by the walls around us.